Okay, we have 22 attendees. Let's just wait for one more minute and then 10:05 we'll start. Okay, guys. Let me see how many attendees. We have 25 attendees. Okay, anyways, let's start our discussion. Let me share my PowerPoint with you guys. Okay, I think in last class we ended at the how to develop strong work ethics. Is it correct? Anyone? Please let me know. What is the last slide that we discussed? Slide number 10. How to develop strong work ethics. Did we talk about the rules for giving unsolicited criticism? CR, are you there? Ammar?
Yes, sir.
Oh, sorry, Jawad. So Jawad, do you remember where did we stop? I think we stopped at this slide.
Yes, sir, I think also.
All right, so let's move ahead. Next, I want to discuss a brief topic which is related to rules for giving unsolicited criticism. What do we mean by unsolicited criticism? It means a criticism that is unasked for. Like nobody, there sometimes we give feedback which is asked from us. You know, that okay, please give feedback on certain thing, but that is not unsolicited criticism. By unsolicited criticism, we mean some unasked for criticism. Okay, now the problem with unsolicited criticism is that most of the time this is not welcome, and if you give this unsolicited criticism, there is a high probability that the person who is on the receiving end might get offended or might become uncomfortable. He might not be very receptive to that. So there are certain rules. If we follow those rules, then we will be able to be more effective or contribute positively. So the first rule of giving unsolicited criticism is that don't. So interestingly, this is the rule of giving the unsolicited criticism, but the first rule says that it's preferable that you try to avoid it as far as possible. So we should try to give our feedbacks only when we are asked. If we are not asked to give feedback, then try to avoid it as far as possible. The rule is check your motivation. Whenever you are going to criticize somebody, whether any individual or any activity or an act, you should always check your criticism motivation, that whether your intention is pure, you really want to improve that person or that activity, or it is out of some negative emotion, like maybe jealousy. At times people criticize other because they are jealous or they are angry. So if you have any negative intention, then avoid that criticism. Third rule for unsolicited criticism is that frame it as an opportunity. Like whatever you want to say, there are several ways of saying that thing. For example, let's say somebody has given a public talk and you want to give some feedback on that public talk. Let's say the person who gave the talk was poor in terms of his eye contact. Now there are two ways of letting that person know about this. One way is that you may tell that person that his eye contact was terrible and that is why the audience felt disengaged and bored. Now, if you communicate it this way, you will most likely offend that person. But there is another way of saying the same thing, is that you can tell him that if like your talk was great, but if you could improve on your eye contact, that will help the audience to be more engaged and the people will enjoy your talk. So that's a positive way of saying the same thing. You are, like, again, you are criticizing that person, but you are criticizing that in a positive way and you are framing your opinion as an opportunity. So that's the third rule. Next is include yourself. Now, sometimes when we criticize others, the people get an impression that we think that we are better than them. So when you are criticizing other, it's better to include yourself that, okay, I also feel this, or I also experience this difficulty. Let's say if I give you the same example of eye contact, then you can tell the other person that when I give public talks, I also struggle with making eye contact with my audience. But if we are able to do that, that will help in improving the quality of our public speaking. So including yourself, it kind of make others feel comfortable about the situation, and then they are it's more likely that your point will be well received. And the last point is acknowledge the challenge. When we criticize others, no matter how easy or how difficult that point is that we are raising, it's always better to acknowledge that this thing is difficult, because you might think that certain thing is easy, but for the other person, the same thing might be difficult. So if you give your opinion in a way that you think that whatever is the problem, that's very easy to fix, the other person will again assume that you think that you are better than him or her. So always, whenever you are giving this your opinion, always acknowledge the challenge, that I understand that it's hard to do this, but if we do this, that will definitely improve the quality of our work. So these are some of the rules that we, if we follow in giving unsolicited criticism, then the chances are the criticism will be well received. And finally, there is another concept that we call feedback sandwich, or we also call that criticism sandwich. And what the sandwich is, it says that give positive feedback, like whatever is that activity that you are criticizing, first appreciate that or express the positive thing about that, and then give your negative feedback, whatever drawbacks or shortcomings you think about that activity, and then at the end again give some positive feedback. That will help the other person who is on the receiving end, and the chances are that your criticism will be well received in these, well received by the other person. So these were some of the rules for giving unsolicited criticism. Anybody having any question about this, or you want to share any thoughts on this? Okay, let me come to the teams. Or you want to share any one of your experiences about this when you faced unsolicited criticism or you gave unsolicited criticism. Any questions or comments about this? All right, if you guys don't have anything to say about this, let's move on. After this, next is ways to handle moral disagreement. We live in a society where we have great diversity and people have different religious beliefs, they have different cultures, they have different ethnicities, gender, race. So due to that diversity, there is a lot of disagreement. There are certain things that we believe are totally fine, but others believe that those things are not okay. So, due to this diversity, we always face this moral disagreement. Now, the point is how to face this moral or how to deal with moral disagreement. We have talked about several points related to the solution of moral issues. But there are three general ways of dealing with this moral disagreement. Let's see what those ways are. First way is confrontation. That whenever you see anybody having moral disagreement with you, you confront that person. Now, confrontation, the studies show that confrontation does not have a good impact on the society. And because we have these disagreements like everywhere, all the time, and if we start confronting everybody with whom we have a disagreement, then the society will disintegrate, and there will be we will be unable to develop communities or societies, and the entire social fabric will be disintegrated. So that's why confrontation is not a good option. Now, what else we can do? Second option is tolerance. Live and let live option. That we accept all our differences and we accept that these differences are a reality, and we say that okay, whatever our beliefs are, we will live according to those beliefs, and we will let others live according to their beliefs. So this is the second choice that we have. Tolerance has certain benefits over confrontation, that we have the society remains integrated, and the society can grow because we do not have this undesirable friction. But the people, the expert in social behaviors, they say that even this tolerance does not is not the best way of dealing with our disagreements. And the point that they make is that if all of us are tolerant against our differences, then we will never get the opportunity to grow morally. So this moral growth is important, because if I say, okay, whatever I believe, I'll keep on doing that, and the other person, whatever he or she thinks that is right, he or she will keep on doing that without any discussion on that, then our moral values will not grow. So according to the experts of social behaviors, it's important for us that our moral values keep on developing or keep on growing. And for that, they suggest that the third option is the best option. Third option is engagement in healthy discussion. It means that we discuss our moral differences with an open mind, with an assumption that even I might be wrong. Okay, so if we engage in a discussion with this open mind, then we are able to find the best line of action out of all the disagreements. And these discussions might not be conclusive all the time, like it might take several sessions or maybe years in bringing about the change, but there is a hope that one day we will be able to develop the best line of action out of all this moral disagreement. So these are the three ways of dealing with the moral disagreement, and a lot of experts of social behavior, social sciences, they believe that engagement in healthy discussion is the best option to deal with the moral disagreement. Okay. With this, our discussion about this moral disagreement or moral issues or ethical dilemma is concluded. So anybody having any question about this or any comments about this? Any questions or any suggestions about this? Okay. Maqsood Bajwa, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Maqsood, can you give me an example of a moral disagreement that you have observed or you think that exists in the society? Any examples of moral disagreements that you think that some people believe is right and another class of the society thinks that's wrong? I think there are several.
I know.
Maqsood,
Yes, sir.
any idea about any issue that you think is a moral disagreement in the society?
सर अभी याद नहीं आ रहा मुझे.
कोई भी इशू हो सकता है, कोई छोटी सी चीज हो सकती है. Anybody else? Any volunteer? Can anybody give an example of a moral disagreement in our society? Ji Nasir.
Sir, different moral activities within different sects of Islam as well as different caste and creed system.
Okay, एक moral disagreement
well
है
as-
जो फिर religious perspective में हो सकता है that you are pointing out. Okay,
Yes.
ठीक है. What else?
And then, sir, about some small crimes, they are not the crimes to be punished, like telling a lie. Some
Okay.
people are okay with this and some people are not.
Telling a lie. Okay, actually, all right. Like there are a lot of people who tell a lie, but I think there is no moral disagreement on that. Everybody believes that telling a lie is wrong. So, in my opinion, it doesn't seem like a moral disagreement. Like moral disagreement is something which some people believe that that's correct, and some other people think that that's wrong. So that is moral disagreement. Okay. Now, dishonesty or telling a lie, I guess like everybody believes that telling a lie is a bad thing, or dishonesty is a bad thing, or doing some crime, stealing or robbery or murder or kidnapping. All these things are bad things. Okay, Nasir, you want to say something else as well? Nasir, are you done? Okay, Tuba.
Yes, sir.
Jitu.
Sir, an example can be like doing some charity work using black money. Like a class of people will say that it's wrong to use black money for the purpose, but some will agree that whatever the money may be, but the outcome is no. So there can be a conflict morally.
All right. Yeah, I think this is a moral disagreement. That is fine. Or maybe one of the more recent examples might be this Aurat March. Like we saw this Aurat March just, I think, a few weeks back, and now this is a moral disagreement. Like a part of society thinks that that was totally correct, and there are women who are oppressed and they need to be maybe liberated or they need to be supported, and that's why certain group of people they organize that event. Whereas another class of the society thinks that that was not morally correct, or the demands that were made in that Aurat March, those demands did not match with our religious and cultural values. So we saw that moral disagreement, and I'm sure all of us have seen a lot of clips about that, a lot of debate on that. Like some journalists are interviewing people on the street and asking about their point of view about Aurat March. So this was, I think, a very recent example in our current scenario, like a very clear example of moral disagreement. Like one class of the society thinks that that's totally moral and that's a must. Other class of the society think that that's totally wrong and they are just trying to ruin our moral and cultural values and our religious values, and they're trying to destroy our family system. Like something like that. So we saw a very strong moral disagreement related to that. So that was just one example that came into my mind about the moral disagreement. And there are, I think, several other examples as well. Okay. Now with this, I think let's move to our next topic of discussion. And the next topic, main topic that we will be talking about is code of ethics. When we talk about the course content of this subject, we discussed that we will discuss some codes of ethics. Now, different engineering organizations have published code of ethics that engineers are supposed to follow. And the two codes of ethics which are important for us are the code of ethics that is published by Pakistan Engineering Council. That's our country's engineering council. That's why that's important for us. And second code that I have chosen is ASCE, because ASCE, the American Society of Civil Engineers, is probably the biggest society of civil engineers. So their code of ethics is also relevant and important. That's why I have chosen these two codes of ethics. And copies of both these documents are already uploaded on the folder whose link is already with you guys. It's a folder on OneDrive. All our stuff related to this subject is shared on that folder. I have gone through both these codes, ASCE and PEC. ASCE has two versions of code of ethics. One is the older version that was probably a couple of years ago. They updated their codes. So I have uploaded both the codes of ethics, the old one and the new one. We will talk about the new one in this subject. And next is Pakistan Engineering Council's code. They have two documents. One is code of ethics and other is the code of conduct. Code of ethics, I have uploaded the code of ethics as well. And that code of ethics is basically what they have done. They have compiled a bunch of verses from the Holy Quran. They have taken verses from different parts of the Holy Quran, and they have compiled them, which are related to honesty and integrity and truthfulness. So I have shared that with you guys. You guys can see that. And other is the code of conduct. The code of conduct is probably the one that we were looking for here, which describes the way that the engineers should behave or carry their professional life. So out of the ASCE code of ethics and PEC code of conduct, ASCE code of ethics is a bit brief and concise. That is why I decided that we will be discussing that code of ethics in our class. And once we have discussed that, you will be easily able to understand the PEC's code of conduct, because most of the things are overlapping. That's why I decided not to discuss both of them in the class. Discussing one of these two is, I think, enough, and the other one, the PEC's code of ethics, you guys will go through by yourself, and it's all self-explanatory. All right. So ASCE code of ethics when you will read the ASCE Code of Ethics, you will see that at the beginning they have a preamble, and in that preamble they provide fundamental principles that engineers are supposed to follow in their professional life. So first, let's see what are those fundamental principles. First fundamental principle is that engineers create safe, resilient, and sustainable infrastructure. Now, we have talked about this before as well, that safety is engineers' topmost priority. We can compromise on anything except safety. The structures that we design must be safe. We cannot afford our structures to be unsafe or to collapse in any case, because the structures that civil engineers design, public uses that structures. And let's say if it's a high-rise building, and if it's a really tall building, there might be like hundreds of people in that building. Or if it's a bridge, hundreds of people might be using that bridge at a time, or if not hundreds, maybe dozens. Then if any such structure collapses, it leads to a catastrophe, and we cannot do that. We cannot afford that. So safety is first. Resilient, by resilience we mean that it should be able to take care of the applied loading without any like deformations or without any failures. And then sustainable infrastructure. Now, what do we mean by sustainability? Sustainability is a buzzword. It's a really hot topic these days. We'll talk about sustainability in a short while. We'll see what sustainability is. Second fundamental principle is that we treat all the people with respect, dignity, and fairness in a manner that fosters equitable participation without regard to personal identity. Like, we don't do any pick and choose. Rather, we treat everybody with respect, dignity, and honor, and with fairness. And that helps us in developing or fostering equitable, like fostering strong work ethic in any organization, as we talked about before. Fundamental principle is consider the current and anticipated needs of the society. This is the responsibility of engineers, that they consider the current and the future needs of a society. For example, as a civil engineer, like what are the things that that come in the purview of civil engineering professionals regarding the need of the society? Like, let's say the population of the society is growing. Now, as a civil engineer, we need to see that, okay, what are different means of transportation that we will require in future? Like, if the population is increasing, then definitely the users of the transportation system will also increase. So we have to decide that whether we need to, let's say, add some additional lanes in some highways, or we need to construct new highways, or we need some bridges, or we need some underpasses or flyovers at any particular cross sections, if we need some new airport for a city, or if we need a rapid mass transit system like a bus system or a train system. Similarly, if we need to construct some water supply facility like some water filtration plant or water treatment plant. Similarly, we might need to construct some wastewater treatment plants depending upon the need of the society. So, or we need some, maybe in terms of transportation, we might need to build some parking plaza at any location. So all these needs of the society, like engineers are responsible for designing the infrastructure in a way that the current and the future needs of the society are fulfilled, and utilize their knowledge and skill to enhance the quality of life for humanity. This is a general one, that whatever knowledge and skills we have, we must use our knowledge and skill to improve the quality of life in general, whether it be in terms of like drinking water or wastewater or transportation system as ground transportation or air transportation or through water. So all these things, like some bigger examples like a dam. If we need to build a dam, or we need to build a barrage somewhere, we need to construct new canals or whatever. So we are responsible for fulfilling all the needs of the society, and as a result, the quality of life will be improved. ASCE recognizes that when we practice our profession, there are 5 stakeholders in this process of practice. And okay, now let's see what those 5 stakeholders are. The first stakeholder is society, because whatever structures that we make, basically society uses those structures, or there is a great impact on the society. For example, as we discussed, the bridges or high-rise buildings, or if we construct any highway, or if we make any water treatment plant or sewerage wastewater treatment plant, we make any dam. So all these structures are ultimately for the benefit of the mankind, right, of the society. So society is the topmost stakeholder in our practice. Second stakeholder is natural and built environment, because all the structures that we build, they are either present in the vicinity of some already built structures or in the natural environment. And that's why the built structure or the natural environment is a stakeholder. We will be talking about all these stakeholders in detail. We'll see what are the points that we need to keep in our mind. Next, profession, because if we are professional civil engineers, then there is a responsibility that comes from the profession as well, that we should be good professionals, and we should try to uphold the honor of our profession. What are the things to make sure that we'll see those things? Clients and employers. Now, whenever we work professionally, we either work for our employer or we work for some client if we are running, let's say, our own business. And there are 1,000 different ways in which our work affects our employers and clients, and how to satisfy their needs, that is our responsibility. So we'll talk about those needs. And last one is peers. The people that we work with, those are our peers, and there are certain responsibilities that comes to us from our peers as well. For example, you guys, your class fellows are your peers. So how to treat your peers, that's important. So we'll talk about those things as well. And this list of stakeholder is in the order of priority. So society is the topmost priority, and then as we move in the list in the downward direction, the priority decreases. Now let's see at what is our responsibility as far as the society is concerned. But again, this is something that we discussed when we talked about the fundamentals as well, that first and foremost responsibility is to protect the health, safety and welfare of the public. So we cannot compromise on the safety of the public. Whatever structure we design, those structures should be safe and should take care of the health and safety of the using that. And next, enhance the quality of life for humanity. Now, for this quality of life for humanity, let's talk about the sustainability that I mentioned earlier. So, what do you guys think that what do we mean by sustainability? Let me get out of the PowerPoint. And all right. So, does anybody want to explain what do we mean by sustainability? क्या होती है sustainability? It's a very common word or a buzzword these days. United Nations has its own sustainability goals, and all the member countries follow those goals. Pakistan has its own sustainable development goals. Our higher education commission provides funds to do research to the universities to achieve those goals, and they always promote those goals. Have you guys ever heard about sustainability, and like what is sustainability? Yeah, that's the first question. And then we'll see some of the examples in which civil engineers can contribute to achieving the sustainable development goals. Yes, to by you. Unmuting
Sir,
your mic.
it's maintenance, like maintaining a certain level.
Maintaining a certain level. Okay, this is one way of defining it. All right. Any other idea? Any other idea about sustainable development? What do we mean by sustainable development? Okay, so let me share my idea with you guys about sustainable development. So sustainable development is basically, like as Tuba said, in a layman's language, you may say maintaining certain level. So basically it means that we make progress in a way that whatever like existing facilities or without affecting the existing quality of life. There are three components to sustainable development: society, our social growth, secondly the economical growth, and third is the environmental growth. So if you want to see that whether any activity is sustainable or not, you ask a question that whether we will be able to keep on repeating that forever without affecting our environment, our society, and our financial growth. If that's the case, then it's that activity is a sustainable activity. If not, then that's not sustainable. Like there are a lot of things which contribute to our progress, but like all of them might not be sustainable. For example, if we have, let's say, we have an industry that is creating some very useful products for our society, good quality products, and which are very beneficial. But at the same time, if that industry is producing a lot of pollution that is harming the environment, so is this sustainable? If we keep on manufacturing that product at the cost of the environment, will we be able to keep on repeating that process forever without negatively affecting our environment? The answer is no. So no matter how good that product of that industry is, we will have to stop that, and we'll have to modify that, and we'll have to develop some alternate product, or we'll have to develop some alternate methods or developing the same product which do not negatively affect the environment. And another example from civil engineering perspective is like the manufacturing of cement. The manufacturing of cement the manufacturing process, it produces a lot of carbon dioxide, but cement is a very important construction material, and it's widely used all over the world, and its demand is like increasing basically. So can we afford to use cement in large quantity even if it is negatively affecting our environment? So the answer is no, we should not do that. And so what civil engineers are doing in order to make this process sustainable, they are looking for alternatives. And even in our department, we do a lot of research in which we try to replace some part of cement with some other materials, other pozzolanic materials, which can contribute to the strength of concrete. And we try to reduce the amount of cement by adding certain other materials which have the pozzolanic properties and can add to the strength of concrete. So this is one way in which civil engineers can add or contribute to the sustainable development of the society. Another example is we are using as we are using concrete massively, so the reserves of aggregates or these rocks are depleting very fast, and we cannot do this forever. So what engineers are trying to do, they are trying to recycle these aggregates. That once we have used the aggregate in the concrete, and when we demolish that structure, we are trying to reuse that concrete or that aggregate in our new construction. And this recycling, the use of recycled aggregate, is another way in which we are trying to contribute to sustainable development. So these are a few examples, and there are several other examples in which civil engineers can contribute in the sustainable development of the society. And yes, another example that just came to my mind, that is about the water treatment. So we are, like, the society generates a lot of wastewater. So what civil engineers do, they make wastewater treatment plant and then try to reuse that water for certain uses, maybe for irrigation purposes, or for gardening purposes, or for washing purposes. And even if that water is finally drained into the ocean, if it is properly treated, it will not harm the sea and ocean. So that's again a way of contributing toward the sustainable development. So this is what we mean by sustainable development, and this is how civil engineers contribute to that. Okay, now let's come back to the slides. So we were at point B, that enhance the quality of life for the humanity. This is again a general one. Express professional opinion truthfully and only when founded on adequate knowledge and honest conviction. Now this is another thing that we see in our society. A lot of people comment on the things that they are not fully aware of without having a strong knowledge, or knowledge which is, or the opinion which is founded on adequate knowledge. So people do that, but that's not ethically correct. We are not supposed to do that. Zero tolerance for bribery and fraud, that's obvious. And endeavor to be of service in civic affairs, that's again a general one, that we should have an attitude of serving the society. Treat people with respect, dignity, and fairness. There should be no discrimination or harassment. We have already talked about this, that these are undesirable behaviors. Acknowledge the diverse historical, social, or cultural needs of the community, and incorporate these considerations in their works. So sometimes we work on the projects which are for certain communities, for certain groups or certain classes of our society. For example, let's say you are working on the project of a mosque. Now that is a holy place for the Muslims, and mosques have certain architecture. And let's say you are working on a temple. For example, we built this Kartar Singh Rahdari project like in the past. So if you are working on any project that is related to a certain group of the society, whatever their needs are or whatever their requirements are, as engineer we are supposed to fulfill those requirements. Okay, if you are, like I gave you the example of a temple or a mosque, and let's say you are working on a church as well. So whatever their architectural requirements or needs are, we should take care of those needs. Then consider the capabilities and limitations and implementation of current and emerging technologies. So whenever you are making any structure, constructing any structure, we are supposed to take care of the, like, whatever are the recent technologies, we should try to make use of that recent technology in our work. For example, if you are building a high-rise structure, or you are building a bridge which is, let's say, critical, then you might consider about using the state-of-the-art sensing technology for structural health monitoring of these structures. Okay. So these are like, this is just one example. If you are making any structure and you think that some advanced materials are available that will help in improving the quality of that structure, you should go for that. Okay, so you always take care of the or you always consider the latest technology or the emerging technology in your work. And if you see any misconduct, you always report that misconduct to the appropriate authorities. So these are the points that the engineers are supposed to keep in their mind when they are working with when they are working on their projects, and these responsibilities come from the society side. So this was part of the code of ethics, and I think we will conclude our discussion here today. Do you guys have any questions or queries or comments on this? We'll continue this discussion about code of ethics in next class, inshallah. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Meanwhile, let me mark your attendance. If you have any question, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any hand raised, so I'm assuming there is no question. All right, so if there is no question, we will conclude our meeting here today, and we will continue this discussion in next class, inshallah. Okay, Allah Hafiz. I'm sorry, मैं आपकी कॉल नहीं ले सका. Actually मैं UIT में फैकल्टी मेंबर हूँ, तो मैं क्लास ले रहा था, क्लास पढ़ा रहा था, इस वजह से. नहीं, इट्स ओके, इट्स ओके. अच्छा इमरान साहब, ऐसा है कि डॉक्टर अजहर ने पैसे तो भिजवा दिए थे, लेकिन बैंक चूँकि पूरा वीक पिछला बंद रहा है, तो पैसे वहाँ से चल पड़े हैं, लेकिन यहाँ बैंक ने अभी तक रिसीव नहीं किए. तो डॉक्टर साहब ने कल भी जाके वहाँ पे कंप्लेंट फाइल की है कि भाई पैसे जो है वो मेरे जल्द से जल्द पहुँचाए जाएँ, मैंने यहाँ पे ट्रांजैक्शन करनी है. तो मैंने अभी आपको कॉल करने से पहले अगेन मैंने चेक किया कि अनफॉर्चुनेटली पैसे अभी तक पहुँच नहीं सके, लेकिन हम उसको फॉलो कर रहे हैं और इंशाल्लाह एज सून एज पैसे पहुंचते हैं तो इमीडिएटली वील डू द ट्रांजैक्शन. आई एग्री विद दैट. आपकी बात बिल्कुल ठीक है. बस ये अनफॉर्चुनेट ये जो लॉकडाउन वाला मसला आ गया, अदरवाइज हमारे एंड पे कोई डिले नहीं था. जिस दिन आपसे बात हुई थी तो डॉक्टर साहब ने उसी दिन पैसे भिजवा दिए थे और सेम डे मैं बैंक में था. मैंने बैंक वालों को आज बताया पैसे मेरे आए हैं कि नहीं. उन्होंने कहा कि जी अमाउंट चूँकि थोड़ी बड़ी है, लिहाजा इसमें 1-2 दिन लगते हैं. अब वो 1-2 दिन जो लगने थे बैंक बंद हो गए, तो वो पैसे आ नहीं सके. वहाँ अजहर भाई भी कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि हाँ फ़ौरन आए, और यहाँ पे मैं भी इसको मुसलसल देख रहा हूँ. जैसे ही आएंगे इंशाल्लाह हम फ़ौरन करेंगे पहली फुर्सत में. हम लोग खुद भी चाहते हैं कि काफ़ी दिन हो गए हैं, वी अंडरस्टैंड कि एक शख्स जो प्रॉपर्टी बेच रहा है वो भी चाहता है कि हाँ भी डील हो गई है तो मुझे पैसे मिले और काम आगे चले. तो सही नहीं, बिल्कुल ऐसी बात है. हाँ सही है. चलें इमरान साहब, मैं इंशाल्लाह जिस तरह आता है मैं फ़ौरन आपको अपडेट करूंगा और हम फ़ौरन ये काम कर देंगे इंशाल्लाह. ठीक है, चलो.